Our conversation continues with now, it appears, President Trump setting his sights on Chris Wray. Jonathan Lemire, give us the latest.
Yeah, the president is hinting at a potential investigation into another former FBI director. On the heels of James Comey, this time Christopher Wray. In an exclusive phone interview with NBC News, the president said he would, quote, would think the Justice Department was investigating Wray and accused the former bureau chief of inappropriate behavior during his time at the agency. Trump continued, I think it's very inappropriate what he did. What he did, and I think a lot of his service was very inappropriate. But we haven't gone beyond that. Don't forget, we just found out about all of these FBI agents being there. Now, Trump is referencing a report by the right-wing outlet The Blaze from last week that claims that there were more than 250 plainclothes officers in the crowds during the January 6th insurrection. Trump posted about it on Truth Social over the weekend, saying the agents were probably acting as agitators and insurrectionists, and certainly not as law enforcement officials. This report has not been confirmed by NBC News, and there is simply no evidence that undercover FBI officers were at protests at or near the Capitol on January 6, 2021. A report by the DOJ's Inspector General's office in December concluded the same. Now, FBI Director Kash Patel wrote over the weekend on social media that 247 agents were at the protest, but for crowd control. And in an interview, Patel went further, explaining that those agents were only sent into the crowd after it had already been declared a riot. Now, Christopher Wray has not responded to any of the allegations made. Joining us now, MSNBC Justice and Intelligence correspondent Ken Dilanian to bring us more. Good morning, Ken. It was striking that Kash Patel even went on Fox News to kind of tamp down some of the president's rhetoric there about January 6th. So I think that appears to be a piece of this puzzle, but otherwise, Trump giving no suggestion at all what wrongdoing Christopher Wray may have committed, and he certainly didn't provide any evidence.
Well, Jonathan, I mean, it shouldn't surprise anyone to see that Donald Trump is turning his sights on Christopher Wray. Christopher Wray, let's remember, presided over the FBI when the FBI investigated Donald Trump, and that investigation resulted in 2 federal indictments. Christopher Wray signed off on the FBI's decision to search Mar-a-Lago. Christopher Wray, Donald Trump's appointee to run the FBI. So Donald Trump, as we all know, is looking for any possible reason he can find to target his enemies. This particular allegation, though, as you said, was so bogus that Kash Patel had to clean it up. And let me just explain. We shouldn't say things like NBC can't confirm there were undercover FBI operatives inside the Capitol riot. That's been totally debunked. As you said, by the Inspector General of the Justice Department, when Trump said this, I had sources from inside the FBI messaging me saying, wait a second, we have geofencing. We know exactly who was in the Capitol and who wasn't. We have records that show that. You could request those under the Freedom of Information Act. They probably would never release them, but they know exactly who was in the Capitol, and there were some FBI informants, not agents, who were in the crowd that day. None of them went into the Capitol, and there were certainly no undercover agents involved. And this has been a thing on the right and among congressional Republicans, a conspiracy theory that just won't die. But it was interesting to see Kash Patel try to kill it. And, you know, there was another aspect of this that is getting less attention that we should also talk about, which is that on Friday night, Donald Trump posted a Truth Social post going after Lisa Monaco, the Deputy Attorney General under Merrick Garland, who was also heavily involved in the Jack Smith investigation to the extent that she was briefed on it, not that she was directing any of it because he was a special counsel. She works for Microsoft now in a senior job, and Donald Trump essentially threatened Microsoft with their federal contracts if they don't get rid of Lisa Monaco. So this is the kind of thing that's been happening. It's going to continue to happen. And the other thing we should say is that Trump and his allies continue to say that the Justice Department was weaponized under the Biden administration, that they committed lawfare when they went after Donald Trump. They've been in office now for 8 months. They have not produced any evidence to support that contention. Not a single email, not a single record of a meeting.
Ken, hold on. Donald Trump had Barr send John Durham all over the world and make himself look like a fool, being an investigator investigating the investigation. No. This has already been done. They tried this in 2019 and 2020, and John Durham and Bill Barr looked like fools because they investigated the investigators. This is the same thing that happened when Comer did his investigation on Capitol Hill, trying to investigate the Biden crime family. He humiliated himself so much, the Republicans said, please stop. Please stop. So I guess my question to you is, Ken, since they've already done these investigations, and every time they do them, they just make themselves look dumber and dumber and dumber. The question is this. When are Republican senators, I know this is
That's
a rhetorical question to you. I'll ask it to Heilman after you finish here. But any evidence of Republican senators concerned that the Justice Department's making a fool of themselves? These are going to get thrown out. They've already tried to go after Lisa Cook, a Fed member, and Reuters debunked that conspiracy theory. Now they're talking about Fani Willis. Now they're talking about other former FBI directors. How long before somebody in the Republican Party goes to the White House and says, you're killing us here? This is going to destroy us in midterms because we're actually politicizing the Justice Department even more than those that we accused of justifying the Justice Department.
Well, Joe, on that question, the national security of the country may hinge, because you're absolutely right. There are many, many Republican senators, as we all know, who will tell you in private how horrific they think all of this is. Not just what's happening at the Justice Department, but as David Ignatius well knows, inside the intelligence community. But they are not speaking up. Mark Warner, the chairman of the Intelligence Committee, is trying to sound the alarm about what he says is the politicization that's going on within those agencies and the good people that are being pushed out. Democratic senators trying to sound the alarm, but Republicans have just not stepped up, even those who know better, and we are headed down a really dangerous path right now. It gets worse by the day in terms of the things that are happening inside these agencies. And I've said this before, people I talk to all the time are very concerned that something very bad is going to happen, because when they're focusing on all of these things that don't go anywhere, these extraneous allegations that aren't supported, they're not focusing on the really important stuff, the threats that are aimed at our country, or they're spending less resources on those things. And so that's the real concern, guys.
MSNBC Justice Intelligence correspondent Ken Delaney, and thank you so much. And Ken's exactly right, John Heilman. Instead of focusing on threats from China, instead of focusing on threats from Russia, instead of focusing on threats from Iran, instead of focusing on threats from Al-Qaeda, from ISIS, from terror groups that want to do our country harm, they're going after their political enemies. They are gutting our intel agencies. They are gutting the Justice Department. They are firing people that are actually the very people who have been standing shoulder to shoulder against these intel threats from China and Russia and Iran and Al-Qaeda and ISIS and the worst international terrorist groups on the planet. And yet this continues. And you know, John, of course, we know the answer right now. Republicans in the Senate haven't said a damn thing. But the gutting of our intel agencies, the gutting of the Justice Department, all of this, as Ken just said, will have a horrible impact on our national security. I will say it will also have a terrible impact on our politics, and it will be Republicans, unfortunately, and others who will pay, because when a Democrat or an independent billionaire gets into office, they'll probably do the same thing back if this continues.
I mean, Joe, everything you just said is correct. I think it's first. The question is, I think, not just will any Republicans speak up? Will anybody be concerned? I think we know all of these Republican senators, when they decided to give up their Article 1 authority effectively at the beginning of the second Trump term, all of them, almost to a person, have Kash Patel's confirmation, have Pam Bondi's confirmation. They voted for those things. They gave the rubber stamp to those people, so they feel politically implicated. They don't want to have to criticize those appointees that they stood behind in lockstep for Donald Trump. And I think beyond what they might say in any given moment, the real question, Joe, I think, is when will Republicans, any number of Republicans, actually do something? Something beyond giving a speech or beyond putting out a piece of social media. I think, the answer to that is not until they first say something, and there's no sign of them saying something. So I don't think we can expect Republicans on Capitol Hill to save us. And I will also say that beyond the politicization of the Justice Department, the politicization of the FBI, there is this deeper, I think, and more profound thing going on, which is the deprofessionalization of those agencies. Buried in the Trump budget is the fact that the FBI's budget has been cut, the ATF's budget has been cut. All of the agencies you just talked about that are involved in national security and what was formerly the professional side of justice and law enforcement, all of them are losing resources in Trump's budget, and all of those resources are being shifted over to where? They're being shifted to ICE, which has now has had its budget tripled, while the rest of traditional law enforcement and national security has been shrunk under Donald Trump. What does that tell you about where Donald Trump's priorities are and what the risks are to the country due to those priorities?
Well, he forgot somebody.
What's that?
Well, he's got two. First of all, those who, top of my list, Bobby Kennedy Jr., those who went along with that, and they're facing the consequences now and are shocked that he's an anti-vaxxer. And Pete Hegseth, who everybody that you talked to off the record knew was not qualified to be Secretary of Defense. And now look what's happening.
Right. And another